All right, now on to the big story of today. The pressure is finally getting to the Prime Minister, who is no longer ruling out a royal commission into the Bondi massacre, but still won't give a definitive answer that, yes, he will call it. He has softened his language on the issue, though, when he was asked today about reports suggesting he was going to change his mind.
Continuing to examine everything else that is required. Working with the community will continue to do that, and I continue to be engaged with leaders in the Jewish community.
Well, that's not a no, and this comes after 21 former Labour MPs, party officials and unionists joined the ever-growing chorus demanding a royal commission into the Bondi attack, signing a joint letter calling on the Albanese government to urgently establish that royal commission into anti-Semitism and the Bondi Beach attack. To talk about this and more, let's bring in the first panel of this evening, former Labour MP and ex-chair of the Foreign Affairs and Defence Committee, Michael Danby, and Sky News contributor Karalee Katsambanis. Thank you so much for joining me, both of you. Karalee, let's start with you. This is a positive development, but really, it shouldn't even taken this long here that we're at this point where he's simply not saying no.
Good evening, James and Michael. Look, of course not. 23 days ago, 15 Australians were murdered in cold blood on Australia's worst terrorist attack on Australian soil. This should have been amongst the first reactions of the Prime Minister. But as you say, he's now left. He's not actually leading. The problem is that we just heard what he said there. I'm continuing to work with the community. How many more open letters need to be written for him to actually listen? He's not interested. He's reflexively anti a royal commission. So let's see what the terms of reference will be, because we need to make sure that he doesn't narrow those terms of reference and try and just wriggle out of it. But this is just appalling. As I said, 23 days ago, not even a month ago, 15 Australians were murdered in cold blood. Dozens more were injured. There are still people in hospital. He's not listening. I can tell you what's happened. It's the Christmas break, and the Labor members of Parliament have gone back to their electorate, and they're hearing loud and clear that this is not a partisan issue. This is something that is needed to unite the whole of Australia, not just for Jewish Australians, but for all Australians. And I've been very consistent on this right the way through. They traded Jewish safety for Western Sydney votes, plain and simple. It is absolutely shocking. So why can't he come out now and say, we will hold a royal commission? He's still pussyfooting around it and just saying a word salad. Those words he just said are absolutely disgusting. We'll continue working with the community. Which community is he working with? He's evidently not working with the majority of the Australian community.
Well, that's exactly right. Michael Danby, as well as being one of the most prominent voices against anti-Semitism in public life in Australia, you were also a signatory to that open letter I mentioned before. How disappointed are you with how your party, the Labour Party, has handled this issue? And what do you make of this shift in tone that he's no longer adamantly opposed to it, leaving the door open?
Well, it ain't over till it's over, so he hasn't shifted to agreeing to a royal commission yet, but the trend is in the right place. We saw some comments by Chalmers and Mark Butler that would be ominous if I were in Albo's position. So the public mood, that speech by Dawn Fraser cut to the heart. I'm very pleased to tell you, James, that it's now up to 25 and more former members are putting their names to that petition calling for the government to do the Royal Commission. But it hasn't been decided yet, and I understand there are some very bitter enders in the cabinet who are in the socialist left who want to avoid this Royal Commission at all costs because of things that might come out. Some of the things that you rightly raised with the police abolishing committees that shouldn't have been abolished weeks before this tragic event.
Yeah, and Michael, I just want to stay with you just for a moment and return to that story about these revelations about a potential that there was a counter-terrorism surveillance operation that fell victim to funding cuts. You know, along with that, we also saw, long before the Bondi terror attack, attempts to refocus what people were focused on in terms of the danger in society from radicalism. It feels like the Labour Party has been running a big distraction operation all along, even before the Bondi terror attack, about where the real threats lie in this country.
I've been pointing out on Sky for the last 3 years since Albo was re-elected. This is a very different government than a normal Labor government, James. It's a socialist left-dominated Labor government. It's not a government of Bob Hawke or Kim Beazley. And the Director General of ASIO said mid-year last year that the primary source of fear in the security services was Islamist terrorism. What did the government do about it since August? What did Tony Burke, the minister responsible, do since August? And I think that's what they're afraid will be uncovered, not just what they did do, but what they didn't do in the period since the Director General made that ominous warning.
Indeed. Hey, Karalee, I want to ask you too about another disturbing story we had today in the Daily Telegraph. Australia's largest arts festival, the taxpayer-funded Biennale of Sydney, is under mounting pressure to dump one of its ambassadors, Benji Ra, after she posted this to Instagram last August, a picture of a Death to the IDF poster with the caption, "Saturday night in, see you on the bridge," and liked a series of other inflammatory posts. Karalee, there's a lot of controversy around this. The Biennale organizers have issued a vague statement saying that people are entitled to express their personal viewpoints, and I have some sympathy to that, but I am also really concerned that this major arts festival could wind up becoming a platform, as so much of the arts industry has become in the past, for really virulent ideas here. And I'd love your thoughts on clearing this up for me.
One word, James, taxpayer funded. I would love it if I was an artist and I stood up for the rights of Israel and the Jewish people around the world and in Australia. I would be cancelled before the press release even went out. Deborah Conway, why don't we ask her how she felt being cancelled? This is a taxpayer-funded organisation and, taxpayer-funded event. And that is disgraceful. I mean, it was pointed out at the time, and apparently Benji Ra was cautioned. Well, evidently the cautioning that organisation doesn't ring true with anybody else. It's shocking. They're quite willing to cancel when it's the other way. And no, she should step down. It's absolutely disgraceful. And yes, it will just become yet another platform for activists that are not interested in anything else apart from the destruction of Israel, and she should be removed.
But James, it's not just a matter of cancel culture or not. We don't have to fund them. Why does the bloke who says that the Bondi massacre get $100,000 subsidy from Creative Australia to write children's books? Why do we send some bloke off to the Venice Biennale who is a portraitist of Hassan Nasrallah, the head of a wanted terrorist group in Australia, Hezbollah, subsequently killed, of course, but this is a pattern. The thing you identified in Sydney, the Biennale in Sydney, the children's author who gets hundreds of thousands of dollars, the people can have their points of view, but Tony Burke is the Minister for the Arts. If he had taken this issue seriously, he's emboldening and empowering these people. And what it does is it sends signals to the loonies in Western Sydney that this is okay. Now, if you were a proper Minister of Australia, you should stand at Creative Australia and say to them, stop all of these rubbish grants to people who are ratbags, and you draw a line in the sand and stop it. But what you've identified is part of a pattern set, as they say, the fish stinks from the head.
It's been set by and, in fact, encouraged by an awful lot of people in the ALP. Sorry to say that, Michael Danby, but thank you, Michael and Karalee Katsambanis, for your time this evening.